video lesson on fiction, our introduction to fiction for the class. Our agenda today, I'm going to explain the writing exercises that I want you guys to post on Learn, the expectations for this sequence, as well as having a lecture for flash fiction, which is the type of fiction or the genre of fiction that we'll be going over for this week. Your homework for this Thursday is going to be exercise 7, which is you composing a flash fiction piece. This is due on Learn by 9:30 a.m. And the required reading for this week is Cat Person by Christian Rupenian. We're gonna have a discussion board based on this story, so please be aware to read this and complete the discussion board. If you haven't been doing the discussion board, please know that this is going to affect your grade because we are moving to online courses or online scheduling. Um, our how our class is navigated and conducted is going to be different, and participation is going to be graded differently because of that. So please be doing the discussion boards. I will have your grades updated by Wednesday. Although participation won't be on there, I want you guys to have your assignments graded. I know we've been doing a lot of writing exercises, so I will have all of that updated very soon. And if you have any questions based on the participation grade, please email me so we could talk about it. So for today's writing exercise, I want you to write an apology to someone in your past. Focus not purely on emotion, but on the event and on the image, and then see where this takes you. When you're finished, look at your opening and your ending sentences. Is there a relationship, and can you form one? A lot of techniques that we covered in nonfiction will carry over to fiction, so I want you to consider real life situations and expand upon them. Um, One of the things that we've expressed that you guys have expressed in this class is that you want to work with fantasy and science fiction, which is great, right? Um, the fiction that I'm mostly interested in is very realistic. So for this week, I just want us to focus on those sort of ideals. I think that Cat Person piece by Christian Rupenian really reflects the fiction that I'm interested in. I know that we've talked about Raymond Carver and his influence on the American short story. So these are some of the models that I really want you to focus on um, for this week. And then next week, when we start reading Carmen Maria Machado, we'll talk about how you could use like these craft elements and apply them into science fiction and fantasy work, and how we could create fantasy and science fiction that's very interesting and that has a lot of literary merit. I don't want to be very elitist, but I feel that a lot of kind of contemporary science fiction and fantasy work really lacks um, really good technique, and although they're very interesting to read, it's not as refined as I would like to see. So I'm hoping that by going over some of these techniques and some of these ideals, that you guys could apply that within your own science fiction and fantasy work. So be on the lookout for that. Um, but talking about flash fiction is creative work that is typically under 1,000 words. So it could be something as short as 6 words or something as long as 1,000. Um, Really, what flash fiction has, it works based on like a central image or central idea. It's essentially an extended poem. That's kind of how it reads. But there's no strict limits to the creativity offered through this genre. So just remember that. People experiment through a variety of different ways with flash fiction. But it honestly, for me, it feels like an extended poem. Like it feels like you're reading something, you're taking a breath, and you're holding that breath until you get to the end of the piece. The next story that I'm going to read, called Toy Soldier by Rigoberto Gonzalez, it is a reflection of this sort of technique and this idea. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and read it and then talk a little about some of the different elements that are occurring in this piece, and hopefully it gives you a better understanding of like flash fiction. So Toy Soldier. I am allowed to take only 3 personal possessions to El Norte. We will be traveling by bus for 3 days and 2 nights, my mother and I. My mother, my brother, and I, to meet with my father and grandparents at the US Mexico border. My mother packs our clothes. My brother makes a selection, but he refuses to show me those 3 things are the only things that are only his, and he wants to keep it that way. I choose a green car, a beetle that looks like a plastic honeydew melon, the little drummer boy, a book with gold spine, and a toy soldier. But a giant among the smaller armies of soldiers that my cousins knocked down by rolling marbles across the kitchen floor. Why are you taking this thing? It takes up too much room, my mother says. The soldier poised with a pointed rifle as a clunky L in my suitcase. Because, I say, I want to impress those Americans. I bet they've never seen anything like this. My mother raises her eyebrows but pats the soldier, and I'll remember him that way, snug among my shirts and socks, resting his weapon all the way to another country. I will understand his loneliness when when once we settle in a California house, he gets tossed inside a box with a book and a miniature car for company. All three objects going cold next to the refrigerator when the lights go out and the night doesn't feel like home. So, um, what are some of the techniques that are being utilized, right? Um, we're thinking about memory trigger through images, objects, and symbols, um, and then how, like, in the same way that these memory triggers work in nonfiction, like if you pick up a photograph or a letter, it triggers like different memories. You're utilizing that in fiction, right? So this character doesn't typically have to be a real person, right? But they're following those same sentiments, those same feelings. Flash fiction pieces function through a single sensory image. So in this case, the image of the toy soldier is something that's carried out, right? It's here in the title, and it's basically the focus of the entire story, right? So in that way, it's emulating it's basically an extended poem. It's emulating the ideas that are um, talked about and discussed in poetry. So just consider that. One thing that I really want you to think about is how these images breathe new life for the reader. Like something as simple as like a toy soldier is something that's not typically like thought of in everyday life, but in the way that it takes up space in a piece of fiction, it becomes interesting and it makes us consider how these ordinary objects affect our everyday lives, right? So I really want you guys to experiment with the ordinary. Think about like um, something that we would typically ignore and breathe life into it. And I think that's really what flash fiction does exceptionally well. So consider how you could utilize those techniques within your own works. This is another piece. Is this flash fiction or is it a poem? This is a big debate with one of Ernest Hemingway's uh, uh, one of his written works. For sale, baby shoes never worn. It is flash fiction, right? It's a story, but it's very very short. It's 6 words, so it's just an example of sort of like the capacity of it. Compression is something that's incredibly important in flash fiction, right? If we're not compressing our pieces, it doesn't read like flash fiction. It just reads like a short story, which is very different, right? Flash fiction, you're carrying an image. In this case, it's the baby shoes, and it's becoming sort of the heart of the story, right? If you're writing just a short story and you don't have a central image, then it's not flash fiction, right? It's just a really short, badly written story. So I want you to consider how you use the image. The image is really, really important and how these pieces are going to be crafted and collected. Because of this writing exercise is going to deal with compression. I want you to capture someone who raised you, whether overtly in or stealth, whether well or badly, parent, a guardian, a swim coach, a minister, a math teacher, um, you know, bad girls that you went to school with. Capture them by describing a telling moment in detail, and then compress a life's worth of memories, and then allude to the gifts they gave or the damages they did, and then give the reader a flash, a glimpse, or a photograph. And then think about, you don't necessarily have to read this part, by compressing your story, what self did you reveal? Which self did you reveal? Um, so, yeah. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'm really looking forward to reading some of the flash fiction pieces. Thank you.